Hello there. It's so nice to see everyone again virtually. You're on season 3 of Music and Chat with Shueh-li Ong, and it's a good morning from me to you in Singapore, where I still am. That's right, I am. Please say hi in the live chat and let us know where you're tuning in from, and don't be backward and coming forward. Remember though, the live chat is there for you to put questions you may have for our guest, or for me, or for your fellow viewing members, should you have any. And there is, let me warn you, a 30 to 90 second lag in the streaming from when we talk about it here live to when you get it on YouTube. So put your questions in the moment you have them, and I will pull these questions into the stream for our guest or for me to address. So get them in sooner than later is what I'm trying to say. I do want to say hello to some of you who are already here, my regulars and my dear friends. It's always so good to see you all, my dear friends, because of the way the situation is in terms of traveling and meeting up and socializing and all that. We really only have a platform such as this to do this on or by. So I want to say hi to our ambassador of music and chat, Gary Mayulo. Gary is in Frederick, Maryland. And I also want to say hi to my dear friend Sam, who's tuning in from Sydney, Australia. And always good to see Mike Flavin from Phoenixville. And also Brian, I forgot where you're tuning in from. Are you in New Jersey, Brian? I can't always remember. So let us know anyway. Follow the example of these charming people and you'll be right. So it is now 9:34 a.m. It's a cloudy day in Singapore. I spoke to our guest, Gena Johnson, just a few minutes ago, and she tells me it's storming in Nashville, so we have our fingers crossed and hope the lines will be secure and there won't be a drop. But I'm glad that she's safe. So 9:34 a.m. Singapore, 9:34 p.m. Eastern Time, where Ghee-na is in Nashville. She would be 8:34 p.m. yesterday. Yesterday. Okay, I have a question for all of you, and that's to do with our next guest for my next episode, and that would be Bruce Wooley of the Buggles. They are famous for Video Killed the Radio Star. If you remember that song, Video Killed the Radio Star. He's in the UK, and due to the time difference, I am 12 hours ahead of Eastern in the US, and he is 5 hours, I think 5 hours ahead of you. So he's kind of in between you and me, and I need to find a suitable time for his interview. And I'm looking at Eastern Time, 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Would you guys be willing to wake up at 8 or 9 a.m. to join me and Bruce? Because that would put me at 8 or 9 p.m. and Bruce at 1 or 2 p.m. So please let me know in the live chat if 8 or 9 a.m. either or somewhere in between on Saturday Eastern Time. I think in Australia that would be 9 or 10 p.m. Is that right, Sam? On Saturday night. So anyway, let me know in the live chat. So let me move on. I always play something for you all live. It's a good reason to practice. And I have something special for you, and I don't want to waste too much more time. And I'm playing a piece and a half from my 4th album. It's a song, a working title, and its instrumental tail end called working title Da Capo. And I'm doing this especially because our guest is a fellow Nashvilleian, and I wrote, produced, and released this album, A Working Title, in Nashville itself. I also want to thank all those who were involved in the production of A Working Title. So while you guys decide if you can wake up at 8 or 9 a.m. Eastern time for you guys in USA, which would be even earlier if you're on the West Coast, and if you're in Australia or Singapore, if you're willing to tune in at night instead of Sunday morning, please put that in the live chat so I can make a decision. Thanks. So without further ado, let me just turn on the keyboard and theremin cam, and I will play you A Working Title Da Capo. I take the fall, then catch myself. My needs are important too, but so are you. Can't make up my mind whom to be true. I oscillate between the two. When I think of you, then you notice that you miss me. I'm etched into your mind. Our sentence is delivered, guilty as charged of trying to steal a working title. Our sentence is delivered, guilty as charged of trying to steal a working title. When teardrops fall, I catch my breath. My needs are important too, but so are you. I got to think of happy times, forgetting that you crossed the line. Isn't such a crime, and you wonder why you miss me each time we say goodbye. Our sentence is delivered, guilty as charged of trying to steal a working title. Our sentence is delivered, guilty as charged of trying to steal a working title. So that was a working title and a working title da capo. Let me turn all the right things off and also all the right things back on. Lights, camera, action. Okay, thanks so much. Oh, it's good to see more friendly faces. Hi, Mike Brunt. Mike was a guest on my live stream as well recently and a great friend of mine. It's good to have my great friends on. Mike, as you recall, worked on Todd Rundgren's Petronet project and is also an expert in Cold Fusion, the programming language. And we chatted about Ethereum as well on top of that. But so nice for you to join us, Mike. Alrighty, so I want to welcome our guest in. Don't want to waste much more time, so let me bring on the Skype cam and dial her in. Ghee-na. Hey, Ghee-na.
Hello.
Hey, how are you? Sorry, I'm trying to fit you in my screen. I'll still wait for a few adjustments. Hi, cutie doggy.
This is June. She really wanted to be a part of it tonight.
Oh, hi, June. Nice to meet you. Oh, aw. I love
know.
dogs. I would love to have a dog, but with all the traveling and stuff,
I know. It's a lot.
June, is that spelled June, June, or Joon, June?
June. After June Carter Cash.
Yay. I love that name because my birthday falls in the month of June as well. So it has a special.
I love that. A little connection.
I know. Okay, so welcome to the show, Ghee-na. And I want everyone to know that her name is pronounced Ghee-na. So everyone pay attention now. Ghee-na, so your life story already intrigues me tremendously, and I know many of our viewers are rearing to get an idea as to how things happen for you in terms of what they deem as your successes and adventures. The adventures, those are always the fun bits. But let's start with you graduating from the Minnesota State University and your move to Nashville, and where you eventually interned with Ben Folds at the RCA, the historic RCA Studio A on Music Row. I just want to give a little historical background for those of us who may not know where Studio A is, but Studio A is, again, on Music Row. It was designed by John Volkman. I think that's how he pronounced his name, and he actually produced 3 similar studio designs, and they are in Nashville, and they used to exist in LA and New York, but Nashville is the only one left, as far as I know. So, Ghee-na, the internship came after freelance work. Could you tell us a bit about this period and why you picked Nashville?
Yeah, so I moved here almost 10 years ago, and I got an internship at this studio called Welcome to 1979. It was an all analog studio, and I was so excited to actually get some hands-on experience on analog gear and tape machines. And I mean, the first 3 months of my internship, I found myself soldering and recapping and basically restoring old MCI tape machines and consoles more than I really did see myself in sessions. And I think what I loved most about it is it prepared me for those analog sessions. If I heard something go wrong, I was now attuned to the machine and possibly what card was that? What went out? Was there a chip that was not seated correctly or that came out because of different heat? And so being able to work on the fly and just, attack those things right away and not have technical stuff get in the way was very helpful. So 3 months after that internship, I became their house assistant. And then I worked there for about 1.5 years, and then I started working with producer engineer Michael Wagner, big rock and metal producer. He did Ozzy Osbourne, Metallica, Master of Puppets, Dokken, loads of amazing projects that we all know and love. And during that time, I also started working more in the country realm as a freelance assistant around town. And that landed me in studios like Blackbird and historic RCA Studio A and House of Blues and, Sound Emporium and different places. And then Ben Folds, one of the assistants, was turning studio manager. And so that's how I got in the door as an assistant engineer. Worked there for a couple years and then became one of the main house engineers. So when people would come in not having an engineer, looking to make music when it was commercial, when Ben Folds had it, I would automatically get to engineer those sessions, and it was very cool. Yeah. So really hands-on work, and then I started working with Ben a lot more as his engineer, not just assistant. And then I believe it was in 2015, the studio was going to be actually torn down, and and made into apartment buildings. And luckily that didn't happen. And Dave Cobb, who is responsible for Chris Stapleton's Traveler and all the records since, and Jason Isbell and the John Prine Tree of Forgiveness and Laurie McKenna and so many wonderful records, he took residence at the studio, and it's now like a personal studio for him. So just his projects, and he's busy all the time. So people can't necessarily get in there all the time like they used to. So it was really cool to be able to stay in and be part of the family, and work on those records that have impacted so many people's lives. And so, yeah, we did a lot of beautiful records together. We still work together some. And then about 3.5 years ago, I decided, I bought a house, and I decided to put a studio in the house, and I've been keeping busy every single day basically here. So that's where I'm at right now.
Cool. So I'm going to go back to your time at university. You graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Songwriting and Audio Production. So based on what you just said, your study covered mainly digital systems and for audio production rather than analog systems. So the analog experience was an eye-opener and gave you a wealth of understanding and knowledge and prepared you for the next step, really. So could you give us an idea of what software tools you worked on while you were at Minnesota State?
There were some composition classes where we were working in Digital Performer, and then Pro Tools was the big one. So I went to Minnesota State University, Mankato, and then I got another associate's degree at Hennepin Technical College in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. And I did it all in 4 years, and they were about 90 miles from each other, so that was a little strange, scheduling conflict. But it worked out. So I had classes some days at the university, and then some days at the technical college. And the technical college had, I believe it was like 3 studios and then a couple of editing suites. So that's where I really got a lot of hands-on. And we worked on some tape machines and little analog consoles, but a lot of it was working in Pro Tools and signal flow and just the basics. And I really do feel like school is important for the basics to learn, but I mean, man, you learn so much on the job, and you just have to be open to it. That's where I feel like I've learned everything.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think I've forgotten most of what I learned at school.
Yeah, I know.
Oh dear, isn't that bad?
You kind of get away from it, and then you look back and you're learning a new skill. And the beautiful thing about our job is we get to learn something every single day. And so it's like, if you're open to it and you're open to the collaboration and everything, it's not a scary thing. It just gives you more tools to be better at the next project, improve on something. And that's probably my most favorite thing about this job.
So in terms of the songwriting part of your degree, was that, some theory, lyric writing, song construction, or was it recording as well? We're using Pro Tools in conjunction with?
Yeah, so it wasn't specifically songwriting. It was, we did have to create some scores, classical scores, and also we had a lot of theory classes every day at 8 a.m. For the first 2 years, working on music theory and different levels of it. And then we'd have a composition class, and then aural skills, where you look at the piece of sheet music, you get one note on the piano, and then you have to do what it says on the sheet music. And there was also a drumming class that we took, piano class that took you from basic things to them playing good classical pieces. But my main focus outside audio engineering and production was singing and vocals, and I'm classically trained vocalist since I was 12 years old. And so it's really fun to be able to work with vocalists now and have those tools because it's a muscle, and if you don't use it, it's not going to be as strong, and you're not going to be able to perform as well and have as much endurance.
So would you say that your all the fundamentals of including music theory really assist you as an audio engineer as well? A lot of potential engineers, young people like to think they don't need the theory side, but would you say it's an important tool and knowledge to have because it does come in handy?
It does come in handy. Not everyone has it, and that's okay. I think you probably pick up on a lot of it, along the way. And I've been impressed in Nashville how many people are trained by ear to play piano or guitar or whatever, and
Yeah.
they're absolutely killer at it. It's like you would have no idea that they don't know theory. So in a sense, my mind has changed about that since college, but I'm thankful that I have it, especially when I was working on big orchestral sessions at RCA Studio A or Ocean Way, where we'd have, remember on a Ben Folds record, so there in 2016, it came out, but we recorded it in 2014, and there was 83 pieces in the room. It was a lot. And then his grand piano was in the middle, and it was incredible. I mean, that room is built for that. So it was crucial because time is money, especially on those days. A minute is worth so much. So if you don't know what they're talking about when saying bar numbers, or know the specific key command to get there quickly, and like, okay, they listen back with 1 bar of playback before they punch with 2 bars of playback before. So it's like knowing just, I think, the lingo and having the experience, but that's when theory really helped me the most.
I've got a couple of pictures of Studio A for those who are curious. And this is an exterior shot, which I got from Google Maps. Thank you very much, Google Maps. And this is a picture that I downloaded from a particular site. I think it's Business Journal or somewhere, something like that. So thank you very much again for letting us use this picture. I hope you can see it. So this is the live room. Again, as I said earlier on, Studio A was built for large ensembles to play together, not overdubbing, but tracking as a whole. As Ghee-na was saying earlier on, that at one of these projects they had an 83-piece orchestra. If I'm not wrong, that's what you mentioned, with Ben Folds at his piano in the midst of this 83-piece. So the room in the picture might look small, but it fits at least 80 to 100 members, if I'm not wrong. So just to give you an idea. Sorry, Ghee-na?
Yeah, seated members, and it's 3 stories tall. And as you see in the picture, I'm sure there's the sides of the wall, as it cascades, there's like round, billowy, shapes, and it actually goes like this, like a dome. So it gets bigger as it goes up, and there's no standing waves in the whole room, which is crazy to think about in such a big room.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine that. We have a standing wave in my mom's living room. I know where it is too. There you go. If anyone ever is in Nashville and wants to visit, are visitors allowed in, or only clients?
Clients in RCA Studio A, but RCA Studio B, which was built to bring Elvis to Nashville. I believe that was built in 54, early 50s, and opened in 55. And I recorded a couple records there actually this year, and it was awesome. Amanda Shires recorded her upcoming record. And just to be in the room that Elvis recorded, and Dolly and all of these people, it was just incredible.
Wow.
But you can go to tours there. You can go to the Country Music Hall of Fame and either take a bus ride over there or drive your car and, pay a small fee and walk over. I think you can even sing in the room, as like a little bonus if you're into that sort of thing.
Cool. So I had a question about any projects with Ben Folds that impressed upon you. You'd like to share, maybe one project?
At Ben Folds Studio or with Ben
With
Folds?
him.
With him?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the So There project, that record was so fun to be a part of. I started as an assistant on that record, and then I got a phone call from his manager one day. I said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "Well, I have a huge string session coming in." And they were like, "Well, how would you like to go to Chicago?" And I was like, "Okay." And he goes, "Yeah, Ben's on the road and he needs you to come to Chicago. The other engineer isn't available." And I was like, "Of course, when will my flight leave?" And it was like the next morning at 8 in the morning. And so it's, 4:30, and I'm thinking, how am I going to recreate this? Because he did this record with a sextet of classical musicians out of New York. And so we were using, old tube microphones, and the studio where we're going to is an awesome studio. It was kind of more of a rock studio. So they had a lot of dynamics, a lot of condensers, but not a lot of ribbons, not a lot of, older tube mics. So I went to Blackbird and I stuffed my backpack full of literally power supplies and these vintage tube mics. And getting out of Nashville was totally fine. I just brought a, Ben Folds CD and like a business card I had of the studio. But getting out of Chicago back to Nashville was hard because, I mean, it looked like I was carrying a bunch of bombs basically in my backpack because I couldn't check this stuff.
Yeah.
But that was probably like the craziest time. It was like 48 hours, and I got there, and there were things that were hooked up backwards in the studio, and it was just, there was a lot of things to chase down, but we ended up making it. And that song actually recorded there is called Phone in a Pool.
Four in a Pool.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone, if you want to check it out, I know there's some good friends of mine who are viewing who love buying CDs. It's kind of, I know there's a culture where, the idea of downloading has taken place of buying a physical CD or vinyl or a cassette even. I don't know if people still make cassettes.
Yeah.
But
I think are because of the nostalgia of it, to be able to have something tangible.
I still have my old cassette player. I have a 2-deck. I don't know why I got a 2-deck. For some strange reason, I have one with 2 decks. I need to clean the hits, I think, before I try them out again, just in case I ruin.
It's a good idea.
I have a question from Gary. He wanted to know, I guess this is about Studio A. How is that soundproofed?
How is it soundproof from the outside? Well, honestly, I don't think it is 100% soundproof from the outside. There have been, there's a lot of construction in Nashville, right? And at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., there'll be certain explosions, and it was a lot worse, like dynamite explosions, because we're on bedrock. And so a lot of stuff is happening on the row or around it. So, we would just stop recording for 5 minutes during those times and, kind of embrace it. And not super loud, but, and once in a while, if, there's like a super loud siren or something outside, we hear it. But typically it's pretty good. But behind the walls, behind the billowy structure that I was talking about, it's actually like blank space. So that's just like an air cavity in there, which I believe from everything I've learned, that actually helps soundproofing sometimes even more than, super dense. So having brick and cement and then an air pocket and then also soundproofing on the inside, I believe that's how it all is. I don't think that the floor is floating though, just based on when it was built. Anyways.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting observation. Yeah, it'd be cool to find out if it's a floating floor, but as you said, based on the time that it was constructed, probably not. Yeah.
I think it is, because when I had to rewire the studio for when Dave came in, we were running into a lot of issues just because it was built in 64, open in 65.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, some of the pathways to get cables weren't even open anymore.
Wow.
So we something and then pull the fish tape back, the hard tape you put in there before to run a cable, so then you can pull it out with a string.
Yeah.
And we pull it out and it would just be like kind of a gross smelling thing, like not sure what we're running into, so I just think with old studios like that, you just don't know always, and we didn't have blueprints either, so
wow,
kind of makeshift, but that's the fun of it.
Well, thanks. There you go, Gary. That's your answer. So Ghee-na was telling us that she went from working with Ben Folds to Dave Kopp, who is an engineer producer as well, when he took over Studio A in 2016, 2015, 2016. And one of the projects that Ghee-na got to work on was the soundtrack to A Star Is Born, where she co-helmed the engineering project with Dave Bennett. Is that right?
Well, so there were a couple of us from Nashville, myself and another engineer, Eddie, and then we were in one studio, and then we were at East West, so we were in the B studio, and then our other studio was in C, the Pet Sounds room. And actually in the A room, the Foo Fighters were there. So that was kind of a cool thing. So we had, let's see, it was Natalie Hemby, Laurie McKenna, and Aaron Ratier, and one other songwriter, I'm blanking right now, was there in LA with us. And then we had Chris Powell, drummer, who Dave uses on a lot of things. He now drums for Brandi Carlile. And then Brian Allen, who's an incredible bass player, come in. And then on keys, we had Fred, this guy from LA, who's Dave has worked with forever. Mm-hmm. And kind of had a house band ready to go whenever, Lady Gaga or Bradley would come in.
Cool.
And that's kind of how we did it. And then we just kind of like rotated, we'd sleep maybe 3-4 hours a night. It was crazy. It was a packed week, but we got a lot done.
So you kind of had like the A team for A Star Is Born.
Yep, exactly.
Cool. So how was it like working with Dave on that project? Did he have a particular style? Did he have certain expectations? Did he have certain habits? What was his focus? Because you were kind of, I guess, part of assisting him, and as an assisting member, you need to know what the person requires. Did he have any of those eccentricities?
Not necessarily. Nothing strange. Dave is really good about energy and vibe in the room. So that's a huge thing. Anybody that's on his engineering team, it's all about keeping your cool and making everybody feel comfortable. And that's something that I've taken in my own production too, that I learned from Michael Wagner as well. It's like, think of the reason why we're there, and then really just be real with it, and be present, and just, work your butt off, and have high expectations for yourself, So there's not much other than just supporting. At the end of the day, it's like your family, and whatever needs to get done, you just do it, So we were just jumping back and forth on, different things, whether it was, arranging, creating a click track when we didn't record to a click because they want it to be free, or, tuning a vocal or pocketing things, or editing, or, doing a mix, or whatever it was just kind of all hands on deck.
Got it. So I read an interview with Dave in 2020's Mix Online, and he was talking about how he liked to record an entire band rather than overdubbing, because he thinks that playing it over and over again after a while kind of wears on you. as the engineer, as the producer, and as well as the individuals involved. Do you subscribe to this method as well? I know that overdubbing is not something that can be avoided, but if you had an alternative, would you rather do everyone in the room or one at a time?
My preference would be everybody in the room. It's just, and the reason for that is I love collaboration. And I think when you think about a group of people in a room and you think about not only, I mean, you're going to find great players in Nashville, New York, LA, wherever you're at. It's, I'd hire somebody for a session. I know that they're going to be able to do it, but mainly it's getting the right energy and the right team in there for the artist. And who's going to hear that vision and who's going to really go there. For instance, Chris Powell, he's an incredible drummer, and he's one of the only drummers I've ever worked with that listens to the vocal. He actually listens to the vocal, so he'll play to that and not be like, this is my drum part, I'm all over the place, which can be hard to find sometimes. And I mean, he'll play with pencils if he needs to. And I'm not even kidding. It's like he's incredible, and Brian's the same way, and that's just kind of how Dave does a really good job of like having those people around him that also understand the vision and are just ready to go and can pick up on signals that he's giving. And we're always recording. The biggest rule is always record, always be in record, because you never know when you're gonna hear the magic. And a lot of times, the first time you run through it, you're not overthinking it. Second and third time, you're not overthinking it. But then playing it 70 times, I'm exaggerating, but you can start overthinking it to forget, what it should sound like or why you're singing it or. So I definitely think a lot of people in the room, but I mean, during COVID, that wasn't necessarily an option. So I did a lot of audio movers and things like that, and Skype sessions where we would do audio movers and then also have, my laptop on the side with Skype and go back and forth and overdub that way, and even recorded vocals that way. So
I did want to talk to you about that, actually. So maybe I should before I carry on with Dave and other projects that you do or have done, and also, the other more challenging issues of being in that industry, because we all know about that.
Unfortunately.
So I was talking to, it's interesting that you brought up how you rather record record the ensemble, which I do too. I guess a lot of people would also concur with you, agree with you, because ultimately music is a group activity, especially if it's meant to sound, the end result is to be that of a group rather than of the individual. And we all know that sometimes the first or second take's probably the most relaxed and most enjoyable. We had a chat with Dean Parks and Chuck Rainey recently about their work on Steely Dan's Asia album, and how they would record over and over and over and over and over again. So I posed a similar question to Dean Parks. I asked him, wouldn't you kind of get bored by the end of your multiple takes? And strangely enough, he said, well, by the end of it, it becomes more spontaneous because you already know it. So that's interesting. I think, yeah, I get tired if I have to. I would get mentally drained. But I guess maybe the different personalities that I never thought about,
I think both ways could work. And I mean, well, okay, do you ever do this in the studio where you get the take that you're like, okay, that was the best take ever. Now let's just do one for fun. Like, just, we have that, so let's just do a safety take. That might be sort of what he's referring to, because then it does feel like, okay, we got this. It feels great, and now we're going to go and do another take, and it doesn't matter if we, play, something completely different, or this solo is super wild. And then a lot of times that take is what ends up being the keeper.
There you go. I guess that's when the producer plays an important role, isn't it? That he or she then kind of coerces the band to, let's do another one for safety reasons, or how are you feeling? You know, he kind of, or she kind of gets in the mix and say, well, you know, well, we could do this.
Yeah. Well, and I always recording and capturing everything when you're in the studio. Obviously, if you're on tape, it's a little harder, and we've done those projects where typically I'll have tape running, but I'll also have Pro Tools running just in case, and then we'll dump off, you know, the repro after that. But it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's good. Honestly, I like to track to tape and Pro Tools if I have the option, because you have a safety. You know, nothing is 100%. So anyways, that being said, it's like if you're always recording and not saying, okay, stand by, rolling, it's like the red light fever goes away. You know, people aren't thinking as much. They're enjoying each other's company. It's the collaboration. They're having maybe a conversation, and it's like, okay, cool, let's try one. All right, cool. 1, 2, you know, and just goes into it. And it's not like, oh, wait, we're not recording yet. Oh, I missed the front half of that. I mean, as somebody in the control room, that's the worst thing that you can do, is miss anything. And sometimes it's out of your control if it's, you know, a computer thing, but always being on it and being intentional and, you know, recording constantly is important.
Thanks for highlighting that, and that's an important lesson for those of you who are dreaming of being just like Ghee-na, and hopefully getting to where she is. It's important for the engineer's part to also play an important role along with the producer. You are kind of his advocate in many ways. And you have to be on the ball as well. The thing, many times I have to work on my own, so I'm recording myself as I'm playing, and it gets tiring very quickly because you have to remember to hit the record button. By the time you're done, what was it that I was thinking of?
I know. It can be a lot. I mean, I think that's probably got really exhausting to people during COVID. You know, because when you do have a team of producer, engineer, assistant, you know, you're all supporting each other. You're all just trying to make everybody look good, to have the group look great, you know? And it's like, if the producer can be confident in the engineer, then the producer can feel like they can do anything. And the same thing goes for like the engineering being confident in the assistant. It all works to one thing.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of the equipment or the gear that you had to use in Studio A and what you have in your home studio now, I'm assuming that it's a hybrid of analog and digital then. Do you also run your own Pro Tools setup, or do you use something else? Yes.
Yeah, I use. Yep.
What is your workflow then in terms of this hybrid, the analog digital? You've kind of already somewhat touched on it by saying you roll both tapes at the same time for just in case. But is there like a basic workflow that you subscribe to?
I think what you're recording with on the way in really, really matters. So I have great mics and mics that have different colors, you know, and you use them for different things. Microphones I'm really into right now are the Chandler Limited. They're after the Abbey Road microphones. I have both the red and the TG, and I use it. I mean, they work great for vocals. They work great for overheads. Guitar is like a stereo pair. It's stunning. And, you know, and having a lot of old ribbons and things like that, like something that can create sort of more than a sound of just like a 57 or something. I mean, now with software, you can manipulate anything, but I do love the analog side of all of this. So then, you know, preamps, I have a lot of gear back there. I actually have a TG preamp that is serial number 2. So it actually has like, you know, potential parts from Abbey Road, like that whole thing. And it's amazing. There's like some magic in it. And so when I'm recording, I'll use all, you know, external preamps and compressors and whatnot, and do a lot of the processing on the way in. But I'm also an advocate for, if you have to do a ton of EQing, maybe just try a different mic, maybe try a different preamp, maybe try a different position, you know, where your mic is, because you might get a better result, or it might learn to something else. And then when I'm mixing, a lot of the times I'll do like a hybrid thing. So I'll go out of Pro Tools into a summing mixer from Cappy Audio. If you know who they are, they're great. They make like 500 series things and whatnot after like vintage API 70s consoles. And then I'll go out of there into like the line input of one of those. The VP28 Platinum has been one of my favorites. So I'll go through the line amp of that and then back into Pro Tools. And then I'll do some digital processing as well. Right. And that's helped. It takes the mix from like here to here to me. It just makes it feel bigger and wider and honestly a lot louder.
So you mentioned how during the pandemic you had to go more in a remote setup rather than a face-to-face setup, and you mentioned audio movers, which as I was saying, Dean Parks earlier on was also placed in that position, and he mentioned audio movers. I think someone else earlier on, one of my guests, Neil Blackwood, I think, mentioned audio movers. So it looks like it's the default go-to tool for remote recording, or as in client and, you know, engineer/musician working remotely. How effective has it been? I hear there is still a minuscule amount of latency, or am I wrong? What are the pros and cons?
The latency is not wonderful, but it's almost the same as you and I Skyping. You know, it's like you have to get used to waiting a couple seconds before responding, which sometimes might feel awkward because, you know, you're like, you feel like you're in the room with this person, but it's sort of the same thing. So a lot of times when I'm closing out mixes, I'll just, it's a plugin. It's called Listen to, and then there's a receive, and I'll just put it on my master and send that link to the client, and then they can listen on headphones. So then, you know, say I love the Audio-Technica M50X headphones. Those are my studio headphones that I use. And so then a lot of times when people ask me, clients, they'll say, you know, what kind of headphones should I get? And I was like, well, I really like these. I'll have them listen in the studio. But then we have a reference that's similar, you know? So it's like, if I know how it's sounding on there, and then they're like, oh, my vocal sounds a little too bright, or this, or the guitars don't seem loud enough, and it's like, okay, what are you listening on? And then having a reference, you know what I mean? Like, your phone is the best reference because that's where people listen to their music. But, you know, for us more hi-fi nerds out there, we want to have something that, you know, is detailed and precise and feels really good. So that's been the biggest downfall, is when people don't have a proper speakers or headphones to listen on for especially those kind of things, like closing out mixes, you know, because you work so hard on all of the little details throughout. And, you know, some artists are really involved in that and love that process. And then some are kind of like, okay, you know, just make sure my vocal is loud, you know? So it's kind of like half a dozen, like you don't know what you're going to get. So Audio Movers has been great for that, but yeah, it definitely can be difficult.
Are you allowed to name any clients who might have worked with you remotely via Audio Movers and Listen?
Yeah, Caitlin Smith, who is an incredible singer. I'm doing her record right now with her. She's doing a self-produced thing. And she's with Sony Monument, and she's just incredible. I think she just did we're working on a single right now that a huge artist cut, and I'm really excited for that to come out. But that was the particular song because she's in Minnesota and I'm in Nashville. And so, she comes here for about 3 or 4 days and we'll work on things and record a batch of songs. But, to listen to different parts, or, if I do a vocal comp and, she's really involved in her vocals because she's such a big vocalist. It's like, I want to make sure she's happy and all of the harmonies are exactly, correct and all of that stuff. So we've sat on audio movers for hours before and then had FaceTime up, and then you're muting FaceTime or Skype, so it's not like this echoey feedback thing. And then being like hand signals like, okay, stop here. It's not great, but it does do the job.
I've been thinking of having a live stream episode focused on audio movers or remote recording situations. Might have to get you to be on one of those, I think.
Sure.
All right, I've got, let's move on to one of Dave Cobb's projects, and you mentioned him earlier on, Chris Stapleton, and I'd like to actually highlight the Starting Over album because I love some of the material on it. In fact, I took screenshots of the video of the single itself, and I did that on purpose because, as you can see, we've got Ghee-na in the music video, as well as Vance Powell, who was engineering and mixing. I think he was also the mixer. And Chris Stapleton playing guitar. I don't know if you guys can see clearly. The shots are a little on the darker side, but I think it's obvious where Ghee-na is. So I'm curious, with Vance Powell in the mix, get it? Haha. Which aspects of the engineering and mixing were you involved in? Did you kind of work together, or?
Yeah, so I assisted on the previous 3 records with Vance and did some engineering as well for overdubs and whatnot. And this one, since, I hadn't been assisting for a few years, he said, he said the coolest thing to me. He goes, let's make room for both of us. There's plenty of work to be done, and let's do it. And he's been an awesome mentor and friend to me, and just so supportive, and somebody that I can call or, borrow gear from when I didn't have any gear. And, it was really awesome. And he's so knowledgeable. He was a live sound engineer first, and then studio engineer. And I'm just a huge fan of him as a human being and also as an engineer. And I've learned a ton from him. So we just basically split up everything.
Wow.
And so some days, Chris and Morgan would want to cut vocals, and Dave and Vance would go home, and it would just be the 3 of us, or, Vance would have something going on, or, I had something going on, or whatever it was. But it was just it was cool. Both of us were leading, which doesn't happen a lot. And I think you have to be, 2 very secure people in your own self and ego to be able to do that. And you can't really show up with a huge ego. You just have to be in support. And I think that's probably the best way in any scenario in the studio or any work environment, because once, big egos get involved, it just, you're not thinking about the song anymore. So it was really fun and eye-opening and cool for us both to do that together. And, the result was just insane in my mind. I loved it. And, and every Chris Stapleton thing I've ever been a part of, every record, there's always been a song that is just a tearjerker. I mean, the guy could sing the alphabet and you could cry. I mean, he's just incredible. But yeah, talking about dogs, Maggie's song, oh, broke my heart.
For those of you who have never heard of Chris Stapleton or heard his magical voice, I recommend you his version of Tennessee Whiskey. I love it. I love the hint of R&B that he put in the melody and the harmonies. And if you have watched the movie The Midnight Sky, you would have heard it. That's the one with George Clooney in it, wasn't it? I think that's the one with George Clooney. You got to hear Chris's version of Tennessee Whiskey. I had to play it over and over again the first time I heard it because I just love it. Yeah, and you're so right about his voice. Oh.
I know.
But I have to tell you this, and all of you watching, I have been, ever since I moved to Nashville, I have been blown away by the musicianship and the quality of musicianship exhibited by all the musicians there. They can do just about anything, and they'll always do it right every time. You know, playing or singing, they never falter. There is no falsity in the whole thing. It's always genuine and it's always quality. So that's all I'm gonna say because I love Nashville.
Well, Nashville loves you, so you have to come back soon.
Yeah, I will. So, all of you guys, do you have any questions for Ghee-na? Let me look through quickly the live chat. Oh, Gary would like to know if you play an instrument and whether you find it helpful as playing an instrument and being an engineer who plays an instrument. I think she somewhat covered that earlier on when I asked her about music theory, but Ghee-na, please feel free to answer that question if you like, whether you play an instrument.
I play piano, not as well as you. I definitely cannot play the theremin. I have no idea how you even did. I mean, you're going to have to show me.
I'll show you, yeah.
Because I've tried messing around with theremin before, and it is very hard. It's very hard. But, so I sing and I play piano and then just a little bit of guitar, enough to get by. And that's where theories really helped me is, when you're having to figure out vocal parts on the piano, or you're having to, do a basic chord structure of the song, playing it through with the artist. Some artists don't play any instruments and just sing. And so you kind of have to be a Swiss Army knife, especially as a producer. A lot of times on projects in my own home studio, I'm producer and engineer. So I'm wearing all of the hats.
And speaking of which, you recently produced Ashley Monroe's Rose Gold album, and I do have a picture of the album cover. Could you give us a quick summary of this project, how it came to be, any particular techniques that you use that you're very proud of? How was the client like to work with? Was she happy with the result? Were there any kind of differences between you and her expectations, and you went with yours and she loved it? That kind of thing.
Okay. Ashley is incredible. If you guys don't know who Ashley Monroe is, I highly recommend checking her out. She's been around. I think her first record, she moved to Nashville when she was like 13. I think her first record is when she was like 16 or something, but she's an incredible songwriter. I mean, her first couple records, I think, was produced by Vince Gill and Justin Niebank. She got off of a label, and she called me about 2.5 years ago and said, hey, I've been thinking about you and I've been writing these songs and I just can't get you off of my mind. Like when we did the Sparrow record with Dave. And she goes, I've been writing these songs with these, songwriting producers in Nashville, different track people and whatnot. And I've just been thinking about you and I would love to have you mix my record. And I was like, cool. So it started off just like that. And then it turned into sort of like a self-produced and then co-produced thing, and it just sort of like manifested into what it was, where she would get these tracks from the singer songwriter producers, and then we would, you know, tear everything apart and be like, okay, how do we make this sound massive but interesting? And, you know, and it's like she has a direct line to like a higher being. Wow. Like truly. And it just, she would come in and have this idea, and then, you know, sometimes there would be like 50 harmonies on a song. And it would just be this, you know, and she'd hear all of this stuff. So the challenge was basically making it sound how she heard it in her head, which sounds like it should be a huge challenge, but her and I were so in sync, I think, with just like where we were at in our lives personally and also musically. And, you know, we're listening to everything from like Prince to Beyonce to Kanye to, you know, like the Staple Singers to like, we had all of these different references that we just kept like listening to and kind of vibing off of to find the sound. And then it became Rose Gold. And yeah, it's truly one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. It feels like there's not one reverb that I would do differently. You know, like there's not like one reverb tail that I would want to have longer or shorter or something. It just feels very good, like in the moment sort of thing. So yeah, it was fun, and we did it all here. She would come in, and sometimes, you know, the drum tracks weren't up to par in my mind. And so I'd say, hey, you know, I don't want to overstep, but I think we should retrack the drums and the bass. And then we bring in, you know, Chris and Brian, and we track drums in my ISO booth and have, you know, bass direct, and we just like, you know, vibe off of it. And sometimes we're replacing the lead vocal, and sometimes we're, you know, I'm putting harmonies on things, and she's, you know, we're adding new piano parts or stripping the song back and completely taking everything out but the vocal. So it was very interesting. It was just like, we just followed our intuition the entire time, and any gut feeling we had about anything, we just did it. So, yeah, it was great. And her team, her management team just believes in her so much, and, you know, super loving community in Nashville. So it was fun to work on that together.
I have to say, yay. Second that when you said super loving team in Nashville. Everyone in Nashville has been just warm-hearted and embraced me since I arrived in Nashville. From day one, folks. Thank you. Miss you guys. You have a question from Mike Flavin. Ghee-na, you mentioned that the other gentleman being a live sound engineer. I think you're referring to Vance Powell. Have you done any live mixing yourself?
I've done limited live mixing for actual shows. I've done a lot of mixing post-production live shows at my studio. Yeah. Like I did a Jason Isbell record. It was live from Muscle Shoals with the guys from the Drive-By Truckers. It's like 26 songs, 25 songs, and taking the recordings from that. But my experience with live mixing really is during quarantine. I actually set up a studio at Jason Isbell and Amanda Shire's house, and we did these ISO lounging is what she called them. Oh. And so we outfitted it with a digital console, and we had a splitter and 16 channels on the stage, 16 channels back, and some outboard gear. And we recorded it and live streamed to YouTube, and, had the latency and all of that stuff. And we're dealing with the internet. And then I mixed a couple things it was like an opener at Bridgestone a few years ago. And that was cool. That actually put the bug in me to be like, this would be amazing. But I'm a little too much of a homebody where I don't think I'd want to be on the road.
There you go, Mike. So we're heading towards the end of our chat with Ghee-na. I have a couple of questions for her. If you guys have one, please put in the live chat immediately because there is that dreaded lag of 30 to 90 seconds or more in some places, I believe. I know there are a few of you probably in Europe somewhere. Please say hi in the live chat. I think it was Dave from France. Are you there? And I can't remember. I think it was Sergey in Russia. The last time we had a chat, you were there. Please say hello in the live stream. All right, Ghee-na, this is what I wrote. One can't deny that the entertainment industry is populated largely by men.
Really?
And women are often seen to carry less significant roles. Has your career ever been met with gender challenges?
Yes, a resounding yes. However, it's always such a strange question, right? It's like, how does it feel to be a woman in the industry, or how does, what are the different challenges? And it's funny because I never thought about it when I moved to Nashville. My parents never made it feel like, you're a woman, so you can do this. They just spoke to me as a human being and were just like, get your wings, go fly, and it was like, pick up the pieces. Things don't work out. It's like, if you fail, get back up. It's a learning experience. And I've really tried to have the mindset as obstacle equals opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And that, all of us are going through something, and so it's like, and that has been my biggest thing that I've learned is just to have grace with people. And I know that during this, crazy time that we're all in, and it's been tough because I feel like everybody's kind of on, like hot fire and like pins and needles all the time. And it's just, if you're a kind individual and give people grace, and there are some people that are going to be, relentless when it comes to that kind of stuff. And for instance, there's been, people in the past that, maybe their wives weren't comfortable with their husbands working with a woman, and which felt strange, but it was also one of those things where, there might be like a deeper reason there, that has nothing to do with me. So I can't take that kind of stuff personally. But, it's trying to be a healthy human being and being in the room, and just like keeping your like mental health clear, because that can be really, really hard and challenging. But like Michael Wagner was, I think, and still is, one of my biggest champions. And he's a man, and he's worked with biggest rock and metal bands ever, and he's incredible. And he always valued me as an engineer, and he always was patient and kind with me, and never once did I feel like I shouldn't be there because I was a woman or taken advantage of or whatever. Like, he made it so nice for me and so comfortable, and I felt like I could ask the questions. And so moving forward, my biggest goal is to, all of us are striving for excellence. That's my main goal always, and to make people feel comfortable and to get the best possible product we can. And to get the best possible product usually has to do with the experience at hand, so moving forward, it's like, there have been challenges, a lot of challenges, but at the end of the day, it's like, how can we move forward with that knowledge and those feelings and make it a better world, and a better community.
I agree with you. A little hot. Ghee-na, have production techniques changed in country music, country rock since you arrived in Nashville, since then and now, during those, 8 years or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more tracks. There's a lot more, loops and beats and stuff happening, but country is all over the map. Country can sometimes sound like soul, R&B, rap, pop music. it's kind of like, what are the certain elements, and then also like the vocalist, you know, are they sounding country? I mean, it's tough. To me, it's sort of like, instead of having to stay within a genre, like, what moves you, you know? And if that means you want to put a fiddle on a song that might be more of a rock song, it's like, cool, do it, you know? Or you want to put a banjo on something, or, you know, it's, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that throwing the rules out is cooler.
There you go. And my final question for you. You were nominated in this year's Academy of Country Music category Engineer of the Year. How does it feel to have your work recognized? And while you're thinking about it, I'm going to display a screen capture that I took from the Academy of Country Music site, showing the 5 nominees for Engineer of the Year. And you're right there, along with Vance Powell. Oh, wow.
I know. It was, quite honestly, I was so honored, and I'm so honored and grateful to just even be nominated with those powerhouses. I mean, these guys are working on records and have worked on records that inspire me to be better. And it just, you know, it was a huge deal for me personally and professionally. But when I found out I was the first female ever to be nominated for that, it became a lot bigger than me. And I just, you know, it just makes me want to reach out to women more and just be there, you know, and to keep working my butt off and keep working on things that I'm passionate about. And, you know, the thing is like, just don't stop. You know, just keep working with excellence.
There you go. Thanks, Ghee-na. We have totally and utterly enjoyed having you on the live stream, and we got a little applause for you.
I have loved to be a part of this. Thank you so much, and how awesome to hear from so many people around the world. This is great. It doesn't feel so COVID times right now. It feels like we're just like having a little party.
Exactly, and we hope you had a fun time along with us. Thank you very much. We also wish you exciting projects ahead and to stay safe. And I will catch you soon, I hope. I'll let you know.
Yes. All right. Thank you all so much.
Take care, Ghee-na.
I'll see you soon.
Okay, bye, Ghee-na. Take care. So that was Gena Johnson, and yes, her name is pronounced Ghee-na, and we can't wait to see her again. I'd like to have her on a topic on audio movers. But a question that I asked earlier on, I'm having Bruce Wooley of the Buggles on for our next episode, and he is in the UK. And of course, that means the time differences for the 3 countries, 3 regions are going to make scheduling really strange. So I'm asking those of you, if I set it at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Eastern time, are you willing to wake up and join us? If not, my alternative is I have to put Bruce at 11 p.m. or 12 midnight, and I got to get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. thereabouts, so that you guys can view it at 6 p.m. Which either way, it won't be 9:30 because of the time difference. I can't make him get up at 2 or 3 a.m. That would be uncool. So, all right, if I make it 9 a.m., are you willing to turn up? Wake up just for us? All right, hands up if you could put like a hand, type a hand symbol in the live chat. If it's 9 a.m., is that a yes? Okay, I'm waiting for everyone to put in their thumbs up of different colored thumbs up emojis. Okay, it looks like 9 a.m. is it. So I'll make it 9 a.m. for you guys, which will be my 9 p.m., which will be his 2 p.m. I hope that works for him. Okay, okie dokie. So, the next episode will be in 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks because Bruce is unable to do the week before. And after him, we will have a panel to chat on immersive sound, mixing in 3D, which will be quite interesting. We'll have 2 veteran engineers who worked in 3D mixing, as well as Rory, who was executive producer of DTS at one point, doing albums by Queen and so on and so forth. I can't remember the list, but you can look it up. So I'm quite excited, especially to hear the engineer's point of view. And I think one of the 2 engineers has won a Grammy for immersive sound engineering. So there you go. And thereafter, I've got other interesting guests. I hope to feature 2 who work in 3D immersive sound for games. So I just need to get them and schedule them, and see you then. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna bid you au revoir. See you again soon. Take care, you all, and please, or y'all, and please bring your friends along to the next episode. Apologies for the darker than usual screen that I have, but it's a cloudy day in Singapore, and furthermore, my MacBook Pro display is starting to die. I'm gonna take it for repairs on Monday. Hope they can fix it, and my clackety keys as well. Yeah, Mike, 9 a.m. would be your 6 a.m. Mike Brunt. Yeah. In reply to Mike Brunt, 9 a.m. Eastern Time, which would be 6 a.m. Pacific Time. Okay. I look forward to having you guys with me at Bruce Wooley's interview, and bring your questions. All right then. Take care. Till then. See you all. Be good and wash hands.